And I could say this for anybody that is in a leadership role. Get them to understand you as a person. They don't, for them to talk to Dane Robinson, not Coach Dane, for them to talk to Dane Robinson. And when things get hot and heavy on the field, and I have to be Coach Dane, which is a far more aggressive persona, is that they hear the message and not how the message is being said.
Hi, I'm Hilary Russo. Thanks for joining me for the HIListically Speaking Podcast. I'm a certified holistic health coach and havening techniques practitioner, lover of great conversation, and of course, clever wordplay, HIListically speaking. So welcome to an empowering place where my guests share their transformational stories of trauma to triumph through health, healing, and humor. It's the ultimate brain candy as we find out who we are, how we got that way, and what it takes to be a happy and healthy grown-up. And be kind to your mind. I'm glad you're here. Happy New Year, dear listeners. I hope you had a safe and enjoyable holiday. And are you ready to dive into 2022 and create endless possibilities? How are you going to make that happen? I would love to know. So, as I mentioned during our last conversation, sometimes we are so hard on ourselves when we don't complete a task or a goal, and the end of the year can really play on our emotions. I get it. But I'm here to share some really good news. You woke up this morning, you put your feet on the floor, you took a deep breath, and there you go. A brand new day. A chance to go at it again. It seems so simple, right? But if you do need support, a reminder that I still have some spots available in my VIP one-on-one coaching program, a chance to work with me personally, work on those upsets and even the deep-rooted trauma that may be getting in your own way. We are not about to kick this year off feeling bad about ourselves, okay? Not if I can help it. Learn how havening can help you heal and how to put the power of active emotional well-being right back in your own hands with whatever is coming up for you, whether it's your health or relationships, career. Just go to hilaryrusso.com/VIP, schedule a complimentary call, and we'll go from there. Now, speaking of VIPs, I'm so excited to share my first guest of the new year with you. And for my Daily Burn 365 tribe out there, you are going to love this. Coach Dane Robinson is in the house, and we are tackling the trauma on the field, and he's answering your questions. Dane shares more about his work as a fitness trainer, a former football player, and coach of a women's football league, and why every experience has brought some powerful lessons into his life, including taking risks, finding a safe and trusted community to lean on, and always remembering that tough times don't last, but tough people do. This conversation is a touchdown, so take a listen. I have been waiting for this one for a while, Mr. Dane Robinson. You and I go back a ways with our Daily Burn days. And let me tell you, my friend, before we even get to the questions, there are so many questions that could take up the entire hour.
My goodness, that means people are somewhat intrigued of what we have to converse about.
We have a lot to converse about. I think this is going to be a really great conversation, as we always do have amazing conversations, don't we? Whether we're on set at Daily Burn or just interacting and exchanging with one another, even off the set. But, you know, there's so much that you have to offer as an athlete, as someone who supports athletes, as a fitness trainer, instructor, and just someone who really embodies health and wellness. But, you know, we both have such a strong feeling towards the importance of mental health when it comes to living powerfully, living holistically, living well. And that's really why I want you to share here, because there's so much that you do to inspire. And it's more than just lifting the weights and dropping and doing burpees. Right?
Yeah,
it's definitely more than burpees.
It is definitely more than burpees. Burpees are a part of the equation, whether it's a soft burpee or, a hard burpee backflip. I don't know if that's actually a thing, but it's somewhere in the equation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about your story a little bit. And we'll get to the questions in a little bit for the Holistically Speaking listeners out there. I know you want to know about Dane, especially our Daily Burn tribe. But, let's talk about Dane and how you got into what you do. Obviously, you've been a football player for years. Football is a love and a desire for you, but you also supported women on the field, and we're going to get to that as well. But being that we're talking about like trauma on the field, let's go there first.
Yeah, we had a small discussion about it, and when we think about trauma, and it can take in this trauma sometimes is, all the time negative in that regard. But where I went with this in my mind when I was thinking about it is not everyone has had the experience of being on the football field, but allow me to bring you on to the frozen tundra that is, Buffalo, New York, that I've had the opportunity to play in. And you think about trauma, and sometimes hopefully trauma doesn't impact our lives for years or months or maybe hardly ever. In a football game, there is trauma happening. The average football play lasts about 6.5 seconds, so plus a play clock. So you got to think about every 45 seconds. There is some sort of physical and mental trauma happening because, Hilary, I don't have to explain it to you or anybody else. The person across from me, as I was a defensive end, that offensive tackle didn't have the best intentions for me. He wasn't necessarily trying to be my best friend. And that's very similar to maybe forces and situations in life that feel like are working against you. But in that trauma, it allowed me to understand where I needed to be mentally. Sometimes you got to brace yourself. How I needed to kind of navigate through that physical trauma with the way I prepared myself. It takes about 7 days to prepare for a 3-hour football contest. So how did I prepare myself? How did you prepare yourself in life? Or maybe some things in life have prepared you to handle the trauma that you're about to see in front of you. And then ultimately to set you up so that you understand that maybe inevitably another, maybe hopefully not as big of trauma, because maybe some plays were good and I got past that. Some plays were bad and I ended up on my butt and it hurt and it didn't feel good. And my pride was hurt. My body was hurt. All these different things. But when you take about it in life, you're more prepared to handle that trauma that's ahead of you.
Oh, that's an amazing way to put it. There's so many definitions of trauma out there, and sometimes I feel like the word trauma is overused, especially working in trauma myself on the mental health side of things. But, every day, like you mentioned, we can go through traumatic events. And I can't even imagine as a football player, knowing that you're walking into it, knowing that it's there. Like you're like, I'm walking into being pummeled, right? Or avoiding a pummel, right? What position did you actually play when you were playing football?
Yeah, I was a defensive end. So
so you were like, we're coming at you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're not familiar with anybody that's not familiar with football, I'm just the guy. There's an offensive line, a defensive line, and I'm usually the defensive end part of the line. And my job is to go run and chase the guy with the football.
Yeah, you're the protector, basically. So their whole goal is to just get past the protection zone, right? I remember that from being in field hockey. I played field hockey, and I was a defensive position too. And it's like they're coming at you full throttle. Yeah, like, you know it. You're like,
I didn't know that.
See, little things we learned, right? So, I mean, with that being said, going in there, you have to be in that mental space of, I know they're coming at me. I know they're probably bringing all the adrenaline when they're coming at me because I'm the last ditch effort before they can make that touchdown, that goal, that winning moment, right?
Yeah. And when you put yourself in that mentality consistently, and that's why I always say there's parallels. Football is a great microcosm of life because you have to think, that you have your own destination. You have your own motive, your own goal. My goal was to protect the end zone when I was a football player. My goals in life obviously are different because I'm not a player anymore, but it's not that same thing. And I still take the idea of like, buckle up your chin strap, that you're prepared for this moment. Get your mind right, as one of my mentors, Todd Durkin, would say. So when we're kind of battle tested in that kind of way, it makes every traumatic event, whether small or large, whether it was a rookie offensive tackle I had to go against, or somebody that was about to go to the NFL. Like, it makes you more prepared in how do I need to handle this in this moment to set me up for the next moment, to set me up for the next moment. It's compounding interest, if I may steal a finance term.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Where was the transition for you when you decided that, when you weren't playing football anymore and to walk away from a sport that you love so much on the playing field side, you actually took a pretty powerful step by walking into not just being a coach of football and men's football, which most of us think about it, but you were supporting a women's league as a coach.
Yeah, that's
Whoa.
It's a very interesting path how that went. If I can touch on trauma one more time, the way I got into that honestly was because I endured physical trauma. I tore my Achilles on my right side, and I battled back from that. I played one more season, and I left the game with no regrets because ultimately when you endure that trauma and you want to get back to a certain level of performance in life, for me, performance on the field, playing the game was almost secondary. I needed to prove to myself I could handle, and mind you, Hilary, I wish all other injuries that happen other than a torn Achilles. A torn Achilles is a rough thing to figure out how to kind of navigate mentally, because that's a rough recovery process. But once I got past that, I got back on the field and I played my last season. It transitioned to an opportunity to coach women, and it's nothing I sought after. Like we talk about sometimes on Daily Burn, like just kind of handling what comes at you, and you never know. We talk about your Daily Burn orange, and the universe calls you in some certain ways. And it started off as me just being assistant coach, and the former head coach, him and the league did not see eye to eye, and the ladies felt that we want Coach Dane to be our head coach, and I was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure about that?" Because Hilary, I would like to say my passion comes through as a coach. You would not be talking to the same person if you and I were on the field coaching football at this standpoint, but 8 years later, I'm in my basement right now, and I have championship banners. I have a trophy from this team that I coach, and it's been one of the most rewarding things that I've done in my life. Let alone having played the game, coaching the game, and it not being a true goal of mine, but it's something that's a passion all of a sudden because we're coaching, we're teaching people.
Look, I can say that from you being a trainer within the Daily Burn community and sharing that set with you. And even if I wasn't a participant in the actual live and on the Daily Burn show, watching you and seeing how you've motivated so many people just who are tuning in from wherever they're living, in the live streaming format, I can say that being with you and the energy of you in the room and the energy that you share even through the camera lens is pretty equal. You bring it. You definitely bring it. And it just says something about you, but also the way that you're able to support and hold space for people, no matter what level of fitness they're at, definitely is a testament that you are an amazing coach, an amazing support system for those in that community. So I just want to shout you out there and say that. So
thank you. I appreciate it. The same way I treat people when I coach them in fitness is almost the same way as I do these ladies on the football field. We talk about, person, woman, player. I have to use the mechanism of football to better them as a person, which ultimately is going to help better them as a woman, which is going to better them as a player. I'm not going to get the player I want if I don't handle those two first things first. And same thing in fitness. If I can't handle the person and help them become a better man or woman or whatever they decide that is the role that fulfills them, they're never going to achieve who they want to be from a fitness standpoint. So it almost is like kind of reverse engineering somebody's success.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that in our last conversation about the person, woman, player, like it has to be in that order.
Yes.
And was there resistance for you as a football player coming in and coaching a women's team? I mean, obviously these women know that the majority of coaches probably in this kind of athletic performance is going to be a man because it is predominantly a male sport, right? So there's also that side of like, what makes a woman want to play a male dominated sport? How do you support a woman who's moving into a male dominated sport? And how do you effectively be a support system for them and a leader and a coach, and still remember they're a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And, but they're taking the initiative to be in something that's a little more male inspired, male focused.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's different. It is different.
Hilary, where do I start? I mean,
there are a lot of questions in there.
Yeah, but the point I would say into that is that number one, like women playing football, girls playing football is not taboo anymore. Like that's that much I'm lucky for. But if we kind of go back to the crux of like mental health and whatnot, I have no problem saying, and even my players have said, like obviously like men and women are just wired differently. Like I can not really like the person that I'm teammates with on the football field just because I'm a guy and I'm kind of wired a certain way. Women understand that. And I've had players say like, listen, we're just wired differently. So I know mentally I have to create a space of vulnerability, of trust, of just uplifting them, so that they can just play for each other. Because I've had teams, unfortunately, where I skipped over that step and they weren't in it for each other, and it didn't produce the results we wanted on the field. But you also talk about like, how do we balance, what the mentality of a female football player needs to be, because it's a catch-22, Hilary. I say essentially it's treat me like a man, but remember I'm a woman. And that's a hard balance. That's a hard line to be able to kind of two-step sometimes. But it is going back to them understanding me as a person. And I could say this for anybody that is in a leadership role. Get them to understand you as a person. For them to talk to Dane Robinson, not Coach Dane, for them to talk to Dane Robinson. And when things get hot and heavy on the field, and I have to be Coach Dane, which is a far more aggressive persona, is that they hear the message and not how the message is being said. And bringing that clarity to it. But it all starts with there has to be a respect. There has to be an opportunity for them to just be, and throughout, the season, for them to just hang with Dane. Sometimes Dane makes an appearance on the field because, again, like I laugh and I smile and when things are going well and when we're doing the things we need to do. But when I need to be Coach Dane and correct an action, push somebody's toughness, get the best out of them because this is what they chose to do, then they hear the message and not how the message is being said.
And that can so be used in just business world in general or in everyday conversations. We're not just talking about sports and athletics here. We're talking about the mind as it is every day, whether you're on the field or off the field, that our words do matter. How we convey the message matters. How do we approach people? And I mean, the first thing I always say, especially when I'm talking about my work as a practitioner and a coach as well, is that you need to create a safe and trusted container and let them know that if they're coming to you or if they're listening to you, they feel 100% heard and 100% supported. Right. And there's a level of leadership there that needs to be there because they're coming to you for a reason, but you don't want them to feel where they can't actually be open enough to know that they're supported in the most authentic and beautiful way,
Absolutely. And Hilary, I believe like I'd say we're always on the field. Doesn't matter what our field is, but we're always on a field at some point. Is that just like there are great coaches, I've seen this done really wrong and bad sometimes, and especially in my world of women's football, I can't say there's been some great example. There's been more good examples than not, but there's been some bad examples of how to not motivate women in the right way or not motivate people in the right way. And we've seen, unfortunately, if I can speak very transparently, coaches calling women out of their name and feeling like they have to be super aggressive as a male figure coach, when it has to be strategic when you create that intense environment or that intensity, but not for any reason, because the player, the person, the woman, whoever you're coaching can check out very easily, can send them in a downward spiral that you can't take them out of. So that's why to be very aware as a coach, as do you and anybody else that's leading people, managing. I would say leading, not managing. Managing people is a whole nother thing. I try not to manage people. When you lead people, is that you have to understand how far you can maybe I wouldn't say you're not ever trying to pull them down or whatnot, but like bring them to a base level without having them go in that downward spiral, because it's hard to pull them back up, especially for a female athlete.
Now, let me ask you this. You're a married man.
Yes.
I met your lovely wife, and many people have come to know your wife as well, just from you being participatory and you being very open about that. How is that translated into your own relationships with Jessica and just in general? I love your face right now. I mean, how has that been for you, and what tools have you used?
I would say it's, this, whenever I'm done coaching, is that me and Jessica met through football. She worked in the football office at the University of Buffalo for helping the coaches and recruiting and a lot of office work, so to speak. And I was a football player. Yeah. So football has always been a part of our lives. She's traveled across the country to see me play, either collegiately or professionally. And, 8 years of coaching women's football is something we do together, and something we make a choice every season that, are we going to do this again? Because she's a part of that system. But it has taught us, if anything, those consistencies of marriage, of communication, of having a project to work on with each other. If my project with these other 20 some ladies is to win a championship, and that's our common goal, we do this in the sense like it's a common project, because she's on the field with me just the same way she's in the daily burn studio with me at times. But she's the one to become a buffer sometimes, where Coach Dane might be at an 11 and she sees the lady and she knows that the ladies need a Coach Dane at an 8. So she'll be my buffer of just like, Coach, like, take it down a notch. But she wasn't, Coach, take it down a notch. No, but da-da-da-da-da. Coach, take it down a notch.
Yeah, I felt that. Yeah, so definitely.
It's helped in so many different ways. But when we look back on this when we're old and gray, is that, we coached we had, several years coaching women's football. That was a cool thing Mom and Dad did that I think it'll be a nice story to tell.
Oh, there's a lot of little fun facts that we can bring to the table, right? I love that. And I have to say, like, going back to that with you and Jessica, and I did not know that about her working in the football office, but there is a masculine and feminine energy to every single one of us, and we have to find the balance. It's less about being male or female. It's like we all embody a masculine, feminine energy. It all comes back to us in some way from our childhood, from just how we're reared and developed. And I learned a lot of that. Here's a fun fact about Hilary that Dane might not know. In fact, my listeners might not even know this.
Let's go.
Hilary was actually a general manager and publicity and media relations director for a semi-pro football team.
What?
I know.
You just now decided to tell me that?
I'm dropping that right now. It just seemed so perfect because of what we were talking about. I actually did that when I was living in Louisiana. I'm sorry, I was in North Carolina at the time. I was still in a military dependent, and we had a semi-pro football team called the Goldsboro Bulldogs. And they had no direction. And my a really dear friend of mine who at the time was still in the service. Actually, is he still in? Still in the service. He was a captain of the Air Force, and he was a football player, played in Kentucky, played like you did, very similar college level, but wanted to continue in some way. And he had nobody that was marketing or directing the team. And I'm like, I have that background. And you know what? I found that, we wound up getting the team up there. People were coming to the games. It gave the town and the city something to kind of root for, because they didn't have a college community really. And people showed up, and it was really fun to be around these guys who actually were doing like reading at schools. I got them doing story time at the schools and doing car washes, and they became part of the community. And I saw how to communicate with these guys that just wanted to play the game, but they saw another side of the game, which was a tender side of how you can relate to the community. And I saw the masculine side, which is like, being on the field and what we need to be. So there was such a beautiful balance I took away from that. And it really is a dance,
Yeah,
so
you really just had me to think about just, again, that masculine and feminine energy where, it is a dance that I ask them to do, is obviously retain their femininity, but, I need you to be tough. I need you to be tough women.
Yeah.
I use the reference, sometimes between offense and defense and saying the the pretty girls play offense, the tough women play defense. So that's why you want to play defense. But for me, it is also again that sense of communication, which
Yeah.
again is tapping into a feminine side because again they need to trust me. It's ultimately trust.
Mm,
Football, not football. Leadership all goes back to the head and the heart, and the head and the heart equals trust. And they have to trust me and trust each other, or else we're not going to achieve what we want to achieve, let alone, the people that your listeners are having to either lead, or maybe they're being led by somebody and there is that trust, or let's just say maybe there's not that trust and maybe they need to reevaluate where they are as far as in who they're being led by, that they're not really tapping into that head and the heart to get them to be their best selves themselves.
yeah. I trust it. It's always about trust first. Always. I mean, I had no background. Like you had no background leading women on the
Oh,
field. I
none.
had no background. I mean, and I went to a football school. I went to SMU, a huge football school. I mean, well, at the time, I mean, we were kind of like right out of the death penalty, but still, I mean, there was a support
Mustangs,
system there.
right?
Yes, the
There you
Mustangs, go
go.
ponies. But I didn't really learn about football fully until I took on that task of being someone that was their support system, and then learning like how are these big guys going to trust me? Like this chick with like I didn't have any football background, but that wasn't how I was supporting them. Like that's why you have a team of people who can support you in what our skills are, right? And together we're a team utilizing our skills. So building the trust and letting them know, hey, I'm not here to tell you how to play football. I'm here to share ways to let people know that you play football and you
Hmm.
play it well and you're part of the community, right? So that was kind of like a flip flop for what I was doing, kind of like you're doing. It's fun though. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
I enjoy it. It's something I wouldn't change for the world. Still doing it to this day. And again, this is the first and last coaching gig I'll ever do. People are like, are you going to coach high school or college? I'm like, once I'm done with this, I'll put my hang up my coaching whistle. But right now, I'm still having a lot of fun 8 years later. Mhm.
Oh, you say that now. You never know.
You never
What
know.
happens if you're going to do like little kid football or something? I mean,
This is true. I will say this: the only thing that's piqued my interest has been actually girls flag football is a varsity sport here in Georgia. So that has piqued my interest. If I were to step away from the full contact 7-on-7 football that I've been coaching and everything like that, so that might be in the deck of cards if I was ever going to transition into it, because that would be a new opportunity because we're talking now high school ladies at that point, that I think would still have some great carryover.
and speaking of other opportunities, you and I share something else together. We both have been QVC on air talent, which I love
Yeah.
that. And again, it's another falling into, right? Like we wound up, you talk about what you love, and there's a quote that I absolutely adore, and it's let your passion be your purpose, and one day it'll be your profession. And yeah, right? Feel that, right?
Yeah.
And when we're doing what we love, our sense of passion and purpose comes together. Life is a falling into. Like you fell into doing coaching for a women's team because you have a love for the game and you have a beautiful way of approaching communicating with women too, falling into. Same with QVC, same with Daily Burn, same with like your endeavors that you're in now. Everything is a falling into, and I feel like I remember that with being able to work with the Q as well. Is that if you're talking about things that you kind of love, and then it's supporting people in a way that's keeping them healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, why not be an advocate for it and a spokesperson, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and can you say that one more time? That quote, because that
Oh
hit.
yeah, it's a great
Yeah,
one, right?
yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
it let your passion be your purpose, and one day it'll become your profession.
yeah.
Something like that,
Profession,
yeah.
man. Yeah, I mean,
Right?
that's so true. And I think about what it took. I think to get here, and I'll share with you and your listeners. I try to go into every year with a theme and a mantra, so to speak. So for 2022, it's DTW, do the work. And that passion, we talk about if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. But it doesn't mean it doesn't take work. It doesn't mean you don't have to still do the work at the end of the day. it comes from the sense of like, do the work, because nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to do the work for Hilary. People are going to do it with you, but nobody's going to do it for you. And when you are establishing that passion, I would say just, for any of your listeners, and I think like how we discovered these opportunities, it was saying yes to a decent amount of things, but also knowing like what we weren't passionate about, understanding like what wasn't serving us. And maybe we had to learn it the hard way because we had to go through some trauma, trying to tie it full circle. We had to go through some trauma that on the back end was like, you know what? It sucked enduring, and I would never want to go back to it, but I'm glad it happened because it allowed me to understand what the passion is that has turned into profession. And you couldn't tell me when I was going through that trauma that it actually was maybe a catalyst and a gateway for me to do the work to all of a sudden find myself in Westchester, Pennsylvania, on a QVC campus, let alone have this conversation with Hilary on that. And it's a great experience. I can't wait to continue to be back there, because that was not in the cards, but it happened because of a passion.
I totally remember that. I remember being on like 100 appearances. I had 100 appearances my first year there. And I'm like, oh my God, am I leaving New York City to move to Westchester, Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Like
cute seriously, little town.
It's a cute town. But I'm like, am I really going? Because this commute thing is like killing me. But you do it because you love it, right? And look, you mentioned like falling into like the area that you love or the things we go through. What brought me to that? What brought you to that? I mean, my first product there was pitching solar lights. I was the Westinghouse solar light girl, the primary. And then I realized that I actually enjoyed not, being the primary guest. If people know what that means, it just means that we're like the main representative for a product at QVC. And then you could be a secondary. Like I was a secondary to Marie Osmond when I was doing Nutrisystem and a couple other products. But it's an investment to be there. When you're on call, right? It's almost like when they're like, throw me in, coach, right?
Absolutely. And like, again, like that's the whole thing. Like, we keep talking about that trauma. And again, trauma can be positive because there's such thing as positive stress, but absolutely. Like I'm living in Atlanta and, getting an email from, I was a primary guest with Total Gym and American Telecast. So you get the email saying like, hey, we need you for 2 spots on Thursday. And it's Monday. And I was like, I have not booked any travel yet. And I was like, yes. Because it's a passion.
Just say yes.
Just say yes. What I try to say sometimes to any passion, whether it's, again, football, fitness, whatever your passion is, yes to you listening right now to me and Hilary talk about just all sorts of fun things, is that you will irrationally rationalize it. If you are passionate about what you do, you will irrationally rationalize making it work. Because you love it. It's something that motivates you. It makes your soul sing. And those are the things that you should continue to tap into, because sometimes we forget it and we only think about, like, we get stressed out, like, I got to find a flight and I don't know where am I going to stay and I want to do. You will irrationally rationalize the things that you were passionate about and just fall into it. Love it. Let it pour on you.
Yeah. So one of my favorite quotes is, when is now the right time?
Yeah. It's never the right time. It's never.
Or it's always like
it's always the right time.
It's the right time because you're in a state of awareness, realizing you're asking yourself the question. So now is the right time. And going back to what you said about, being in trauma or going through something that was really negative, those things need to happen in our lives to bring us to where we are today. I don't know if I would be doing what I'm doing now, working in holistic health, working in holistic mental health, being a coach, being a practitioner, and even really focusing specifically, my focus is health and wellness as an on-camera talent and journalist. I don't know if that would have developed so fully if I had not gone through some of the upsets I had gone in my life. And going through it stinks, but you got to go under the wave over than just like trying to constantly try to swim over it, right? Yeah. So, but I do want to mention, speaking of passion, speaking of things that we're doing, I want to just mention to listeners again, so happy and elated to have my friend Dane Robinson here. He and I met on the Daily Burn set. He is an amazing trainer, an amazing coach. And we're talking about not only just trauma on the field, meaning the football field in general, but the field being life. And this wouldn't be possible without my wonderful team and tribe over at Squadcast as well that hold space for this conversation to happen. We're going to answer some questions soon. We have a lot questions coming at you. So
I
I
gotta get
wonder
my
if we
check.
should go to
I
that.
think I have my helmet somewhere here to buckle. Yeah.
Dude, you're loved. Come on. All right. So, you know what? I'm going to pull up the questions now because there are a lot, and some of them are flooding in this morning, even.
Let's
So,
fire away.
I got them all coming in on the Book of Face. That's what I love.
Nicely done.
Yeah, so let me pull it up real quick. But just again, love that all these people are loving you. How can we not? You are just a wealth of information and such a positive light and spirit. So thank you so much for being here. And let me see where the first question is. Hang tight. It's so funny. The Daily Burn community actually created a Facebook chat group called Hilary Love Club.
Yes. How loved are you?
I was so touched yesterday when I heard that, but I just called it Dane's interview.
Oh,
and they changed it.
Good.
All right, here we go. So this is coming from Kimberly. She's one of our tribe members, and she's in the Zoom group as well. What's one of the hardest personal challenges you have overcome? And I asked because you share so much, and I love Jessica. Hey, shout out to Jessica when she's in some of the workouts. So I'd love to know what your answer is on this.
The hardest thing I've had to overcome physically was tearing my Achilles, because that takes such a toll on you mentally. That was 2 weeks of me not being able to move. That was because I was stuck in a cast. That was, learning how to walk again, going through rehab. Let alone the fact that I was at a high performance level and that I had to build myself up to that. Professionally, it was the day I quit my job as a regional training manager for a health club down here in Georgia. And, it taught me that, fancy titles and money is not the route to happiness. And I didn't have any control of my time freedom. I was building somebody else's empire, so to speak. And, I have a different vision of it now that, again, not all jobs are dead end, but, that was my opportunity to bet on myself and step away from the PTO and the 401k. And I had to actually, when I was unemployed, I had to cash out my 401k just to survive, just to, I think, partially fund a flight for an audition up to New York City for Daily Burn. I think that was part of my 401k. I had to cash out just to pay the mortgage. But those were the two things I think physically and professionally have been the hardest things I've had to go through. And it's taught me how to take care of my body, but also what I value into my own time freedom and betting on myself, and I had to go through that trauma to get to that question, honestly.
I love that kind of ties into your Daily Burn adventure, like your first, what brought, look at that is, it's a falling into. You took a chance. When is the right time? The right time is now. You made a powerful choice, and look where you are today. You're being asked 6,000 questions by Daily Burn tribe members.
It's the same thing. That wasn't in the goal, but again, the right time was I don't have the money to go up to New York City, but I'm gonna try to figure it out.
But you did it. Right? All right. This one's from Courtney. And Courtney asked, thank you, Kimberly, by the way. This one's from Courtney and said, what's the hardest part of self-care and the basic need during times of struggle? Ooh, that's a good one, Courtney.
Ooh, what's the basic? Can you repeat that again, man?
Yes. What is the hardest part of self-care and the basic needs for you during difficult times of struggle?
It is trying to remember when life works best, and we tend to forget that when I'm stressed. People are like, do you ever have a bad day, Dan? I'm like, I have plenty of bad days. Bad days are inevitable. I would say you may never know it because obviously, in the industry I have to work and I have to present, I have to put my needs and my issues kind of secondary to the people I'm impacting. But the hardest part, is just, it's easier said than done. When I talk about life being 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it. And you just have this constant conversation in your head when you're stressed and you are dealing with whatever you're dealing with. And that it navigates you away from what when life works best. What am I doing? What am I doing? Okay, I'm working out. I'm listening to great music. I'm taking time to just veg out and be on YouTube and just go down that rabbit hole because that takes my mind away and it makes me happy. Those are sometimes hard things to go back to self-care when I'm stressed and whatnot, because we forget when life works best.
Yeah, that's great. There, a lot of these questions are about overcoming obstacles, perseverance, and that kind of ties into Liz's question, which is how do you persevere in times when they do get tough? And she also wants you to know, I'm super excited about this interview.
Tough times don't last. Tough people do. Tough times don't
Ooh,
last.
tough
My
times don't
sister.
laugh. Say that again. Tough
Tough
times
times
don't
don't
last.
last. Tough people do.
Oh, hear that,
And
people.
my sister, who's 7 years older than me, I think it was when I was going through a breakup in high school or something like that. And how we all in high school, like, she's the one you'll never love again. She always told me, and I was like, Dane, it'll probably get worse before it gets better. And that stays with me even now to this day, obviously, as I tell that story. But persevering through tough times, I think it's temporary. This pain is temporary. Sometimes that pain lasts an hour, sometimes it lasts months, but it's temporary nonetheless. So part of that is having awareness of what is happening, why do I feel this way? Did I create this? Did somebody else create this? You can persevere through tough times through just like assessment, and just instead of reactivity, it's like assessing what's happening in front of me. We think about it on the football field. It's like the Matrix moment. If you ever seen the Matrix where the bullets are flying in Neo and he's just doing like this like big like slow motion dodge, is that he's not technically reacting. He's just kind of assessing what's happening in the moment. He sees the bullets kind of fly by him and everything. It's kind of the same thing for us to persevere through tough times, is have awareness in what's happening and try not to react so much. I know it's easier said than done, but try not to react and take a deep dive into what is happening. How do I feel? Why do I feel this way? And it helps you create a plan of success so that as like the pain, even physical pain is temporary. It will fade. Sometimes it's excruciating. Sometimes it's long. Sometimes it's short, like when you like stub your toe, but like it will go away. So it's understanding that and minimizing the reactivity and being able to be poised and strategic and assess where you are.
And a lot of it, don't you think it's also just being aware and loving all parts of yourself?
Yeah.
Loving all parts of yourself, because different parts of yourself are going to show up at different times. And to just take a step back and be in awareness and be present with who's showing up right now and why am I feeling this, right? Is it me at 15 years old when I was rejected by my girlfriend? Is it me when I had that stumble and that tumble on the field? Who is showing up right now that's saying this is right?
Yeah, you always have a persona that is somewhere in there. The voices in your head, and I use that in such a positive standpoint. If you go back to like the movie Inside Out, like you have these emotions and these voices that are controlling, and who has the spotlight right now. And if you can just really tap in and understand who's here now, man, it helps you kind of persevere through whatever issues are coming, your way, honestly.
Oh, so in alignment with you on that one, my friend. So this one's from Mary. And Mary asks, she wants to know about little Dane. She wants to know about your upbringing. And so maybe we'll just keep this pretty basic and say, what did you want to be as a kid? And how did it lead to where you are today?
And I had to dive way back into it. I felt like I was a pretty, I would say that even now, like I felt like I was a pretty happy kid. I think teenage wise, I was pretty moody, and I gave my mom a lot of grief or whatever. But I wanted to grow up for whatever reason I can remember is I wanted to be a meteorologist for some reason. Like I couldn't tell you. Maybe it was just the love of technology once I saw how it was being done. But also now Hilary, you're catching me in a big epiphany moment because I saw how they would just present and talk in front of a camera,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, and that I thought that was cool. As I stare off into space, I try to bring myself back to why I wanted to be a meteorologist, but just they were providing information that people seem so tapped into. Like think about like all the time we want to know the weather. Like that's always a big thing. How like the weather is small talk. Like the weather is always a
Yep.
topic of conversation. And this one person, back when I was little, like they have control of the weather. Why don't they just make it sunny and 70 all the time? Like they're making a lot of people upset to make it rain on Thursday, said little Dane. But was for some reason why I wanted to have that power and control maybe. And forefront now that I'm speaking on camera and I have maybe
Yeah.
impact and some sort of positive control on how people move their bodies. So that I don't know, man. That's
It's having a
epiphany for me.
voice. It's having a voice that doesn't mean you're talking about the Doppler radar, but you have a voice. So, I mean, I get that because, I mean, being on the stage or being in front of the camera, I always knew that there was a voice there. It's just how do you want to project your voice? Maybe it's not talking about isobars and all that stuff. Maybe it's more talking about what you talk about now, right?
Yeah, imagine my surprise when I go to 30 Rockefeller Center and then go on the NBC tour. I'm like, what do you mean they're just talking behind a green piece of felt? What? Yeah. Mind blown.
That's great. That's a great question, though. And I don't know. I mean, Mary, that was an awesome question just to know a little bit more about Dane and how you got to where you are.
Yeah,
all right.
She helped me unlock some things all of a sudden.
There you go. See, it's all about the listeners and the tribe. They're gonna provoke you and they're gonna push your buttons a little bit and have you kind of tap into parts of you that you might not be thinking about, right? All right. It's all part of our story. Right? It's all part of our story. Rich wants to know, he's got a more physical question. Do you have trouble doing certain types of workouts because you wear a 15 and a half shoe?
Cycling. I love going to cycling. They don't always have my size. And I remember I went to one cycle studio and I wear a 49 to 50 in, I guess, European metrics for cycling shoes, which is like a 15 in American, and they had like a 47 or a 48, and I said whatever because I was supporting an instructor. Most painful cycling class ever because my toes are just like going numb at this point, and we're in first, second, and third position. We're sprinting, we're doing the music, and I can't tap in to the class, the music, or supporting my friend that's an instructor. I can only think about how bad my feet hurt, and I can't wait to get out of these shoes. And that's all I thought about for 45 minutes, honestly. But that's the only time I think it became a barrier to me having a positive physical fitness experience.
So I think what we're saying, and it might even answer one of the other questions, because it said, what is the toughest workout you actually ever endure? Geez. But I think what we know right now, and I think this is pretty much been stated, the obvious, Dane will never be leading a spin workout or a cycling workout.
Oh, man.
Or maybe.
I mean, I feel like,
never say
fun
never.
fact, here in Atlanta, I actually, I'm a rowing coach. I coach at a row studio. So it's very spin-esque and everything. And I say never because, fun fact, I'll bring your listeners into the world of fitness coaching, is that there is a system. There is a formula of how to present a positive fitness experience into, setting an intention in the beginning, but not setting it too hard. I'm taking you through my actual framework of, getting people's mind right, but not dropping these big emotional bombs on them. It's like, Hilary, why are you here to work out? Think about why you're here. It's like, it's the first 5 minutes of class. I don't know why I'm here. Just tell me what to do. So I'm very instructional in the beginning. And then around the 15, 20 minute mark, endorphins are moving, sweat's flowing, heart's pumping, neurologically, you're ready to receive a message. So we're going to go a little deeper. I'm going to push a little harder. I'm going to drop some big, motivational cues and, some big emotional bombs that's going to either to get you to cry or be like, I'm the best person that ever lived. Mm-hmm. I take that momentum. We push you outside of a comfort zone to get you to achieve and get you to go through this crucible for yourself or together. And then I bring you down, tie it all together. So, there's a formula, a systematic, replicable formula, whether I'm coaching spin, rowing, or daily burn, that if spinning ever became a thing, I would just have, to know the technique, I guess, behind it, but it would follow the same formula.
Crew spinning. A new sport.
Crew spinning. I'll have to think harder on that one, yes, but we'll figure that one out.
It's trying new things, right? Another fun fact, I actually was on the SMU intramural crew team my freshman year of college. I had no idea what I was doing. It was intramural at that point, but I blazed into that. I'm like, let me try something different because they didn't have field hockey, in at SMU. So that is a fun sport. But man, you were on the water early in the morning and your body is conditioned.
Yeah, that is mental. And what I like about football and rowing is that it takes a team. It's not an individual thing. You have to rely on other people for your success, whether it's 10 other players on a football field or 7 other people on a crew or in a rowboat.
Yeah, definitely. Didn't know that about you, that you worked in the crew area as well. I love that sport.
Legs, body, arms, arms, body, legs.
You ain't kidding. All right. So little fun. Well, we've been having fun the whole time, my friend,
yes.
Right? So what I love to do with my guests before we do a closing thought is I'm going to throw out a word. And these are words from our conversation that I wrote down. And you're going to just come back with the first word that comes to mind. Little word association. Get the little association, as my dad would say.
Speaking.
Yes, or holistically speaking.
Holistically speaking. Yes.
My dad used to say it's massaging the neurons. Cool. All right, here we go. So I'm going to throw. You ready?
Yes.
Look at you looking up, like you're looking at your brain. Yeah. You're like, I'm going to grab those words.
The first word that comes to mind. Okay.
First word. That's like, don't even think about it. All right, here we go. Trust.
Consistency.
Injury.
Temporary.
DTW.
Theme.
Cool. Football.
Life.
Self-care.
Necessity.
Crew.
Team.
Leadership.
Strategy.
Fitness.
Health.
Wellness.
Wealth.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Great. Love it.
Ooh, man, I was deep on that. I don't know why all of a sudden I went into a performance mentality that you saw a little bit as I'm kind of staring out there, but like I turned it. There's a part of competitiveness in me for some reason, and this is not something that I needed to compete with myself on. But I was like, all right, I'm in. Like that was a chin strap buckled kind of thing because I saw that as a challenge. All right, I'm going to perform. Let's go. Let's think this.
That was Coach Hilary coming in. That was Coach Hilary supporting teammate Dane in the moment. Right?
That was good. I feel good about that.
Oh, I'm good. I'm glad. Actually, those were no. There is no wrong answer. It's just whatever comes to mind. You know. I mean, I love doing that. But in closing, and I'd love to just say thank you so much for being here. I want to just say that first and foremost. It's such a pleasure. I can't wait to be back in the space with you. But in closing, what would you like to leave with Holistically Speaking listeners? What final thought can Dane share? Coach Dane, Guy Dane.
Yeah. There's so many different messages, and I guess I'll go to what I always go to and kind of mash them all up. And maybe one of these things will hit, maybe all of these will, but again, life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it. Do the work because nobody's going to do it for you, but seek those that will do it with you. And, talent or hard work beats talent when talent refuses to work hard. And what I always try to tell my athletes and myself and reminders of myself is that do the things that nobody wants to do so that you can do the things that everybody wants to do. So those are always just my go-tos if I'm thinking about closing thoughts, because those are the 4 or 5 messages, quotes, phrases that I just are able to rattle off because those are consistencies in my life and the consistencies I try to live through and try to give other people to tap into one of them or all of them.
Those are great quotes. And it's okay to quote other people if they inspire you, whatever inspires you, right? It's all about touch, moving, and inspiring people. So Absolutely. Thank you so much. This was such a pleasure. And all I have to say is I know that our listeners are going to love hearing from you. And I just want to say to everyone that is listening, if this conversation touched, moved, and inspired you in any way, consider passing it along to one person, because Dane, you are such a breath of fresh air and such a joy. And when I say that you're a coach, I mean it in the most beautiful and loving and nurturing way, because you really do hold space for people. And I can only imagine how much more you're going to do as you move forward in life. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much for holding space. And like I said, you were one of the first people I spoke with when I got started with Daily Burn, and here we come full circle and everything. And I'm waiting to see you in the studio. You know where I work. Where you know where the studio is. We'll get a session together eventually. But thank you for continuing to impact so many so many people with what happens between. I would say, what is it? It's a quote from the musical Hadestown, and something about where the real road lies is between the ears and behind the eyes. And
that's right. That's
where you are definitely navigating that. Hopefully, I said that right.
It's okay if you paraphrase. I felt it. I felt it really deep. I felt it very deep. So thanks so much. It was a joy. How can you not be inspired by that conversation? Well, I have some good news for you. Dane is offering listeners a free week in his Dose of Dane weekly coaching and motivation clubhouse. That sounds amazing. Just visit the link on the podcast page to sign up and get your dose. And I'll also be adding Dane's social media links too, so you can find him there as well. And if you're needing additional support on your health and healing journey, don't forget, I still have some spots available in my VIP coaching program. What better way to kick off the new year than with weekly support that will help you put the power of active emotional well-being back in your hands? If you're struggling in any area of your life, or you just need some additional support and a guide by your side, this program is designed with you in mind. Just go to hilaryrusso.com/VIP, book a free call, and we'll go from there. You can also reach out to me on Instagram, Twitter, or any other social media platform at Hilary Russo to connect with me and even drop me a DM if you have some questions. And don't forget, share this episode and this podcast with just one other person if you enjoyed the conversation. You never know how it can touch, move, and inspire somebody else. HIListically Speaking is produced by Alan Seals with music by Lipone Redding and recorded on Squadcast. I am toasting you in 2022. Let this be the best year yet. And as always, thanks for listening. Be kind to your mind and don't forget to laugh.